Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I, as usual, am your host, Jeff Seltzer. Every week, I interview someone about their interests, their life, their stories, whatever they've experienced. I'm trying to learn about as many people as possible, share their stories, and share a few of mine along the way as well. Those of you who listened the last couple of weeks, a couple of friends of the shows have done some really awesome things. Megan, who had an amazing time last week talking about Disney, and I loved having her on the show. She recently opened up a hobby Instagram, so if you could follow her at Peloton Disney Mom on Instagram, that'd be awesome. Additionally, Dana Runberg, who you might remember from week one, has been a lot of great things. He's been doing a lot of great things with Marked Out Radio, so check that out on the podcast platforms that you follow. Lots of fun stories. They got some really cool stories coming up soon, so check that out. If you're new to the pod, thank you so much for giving it a shot and checking it out. I think you'll have a lot of fun on this journey with me. Over the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a couple of questions from a couple of listeners sending DMs to the show Instagram, which is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Main question I've gotten from multiple people is, okay, Jeff, so you've started a podcast. What podcasts have you inspired by, and what do you listen to the most? So great question, and thank you all who sent that in. What I'd say is the first podcast that I listened to, or the one that kind of influenced me the most, was professional wrestler Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling. Amazing podcast. Every week, you'd have a different professional wrestler on. They talk about their stories, their backgrounds, how they got into wrestling, wacky things that they experienced, that they've done, they've been through. So you'll see a lot of similarities between my podcast and his. He doesn't do it as often as he once did, but definitely a huge fan of Colt Cabana. Daniel Tosh's pod. So many of you might know Daniel Tosh from years ago on Comedy Central. He had an amazing show called Tosh.0, where it was almost like they just kind of pulled in YouTube videos and such. And he just made fun of it. Lots of things would happen. Really, really funny stuff. So his latest podcast he just brings in random people and talks to them. He might bring in, like, I don't know, someone who painted his house or his dentist. Things like that. People that you wouldn't normally expect to have a story, and they have amazing stories to share. And it's just so much fun to listen to, which, again, lots of similarities between what he's doing and what I'm doing. The Lonely Island Seth Meyers. So I'm a huge Lonely Island fan. Lots of things they've made for Saturday Night Live, the movies they've made, Hot Rod, Popstar. Really cool as they go through the history on Saturday Night Live with Seth Meyers and talk through all of the digital shorts they've done. Funny guys. They seem like really great guys as well. So really entertaining. Lastly, I would say, and this is the one that I listen to the most nowadays, is the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. So Matt Cardona, Mark Sterling, Brian Myers, they've created almost a whole community over on Facebook via their Patreon, via their podcast, talking about all things wrestling, wrestling collectibles, even just collectibles in general. You'll see in a few minutes when I introduce Rob Cosgrove, my guest. That's actually where we met, was via the Major Players, Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Facebook group, which is really, really amazing. So for those that asked the question, there it is. Before I introduce my guest, before I talk about Rob, some housekeeping. So firstly, on Instagram, you can follow us at Everybody Has a Story Pod. YouTube, additionally, you can check us out at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Insta is Seltzer77. If you need to email us directly, you can email us at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. Anything else, check out jeffseltzer.com for all things Jeff Seltzer. Lots of cool videos, all the links to this podcast that you need, stuff like that. If you want to be a future guest, definitely shoot me a DM on Instagram, either at Seltzer77 or at the show pod, which is, again, Everybody Has a Story Pod. Lastly, we are on all podcast platforms. So as mentioned last week, we're finally on, in addition to Spotify, YouTube, and Apple, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Amazon, lots of different places across the board. If you want to see us via video, Spotify and YouTube are the way to go. Outside of that, we're everywhere else. If there's a platform we're missing, definitely shoot me a note. Love to see if I can add them on. But outside of that, it seems like we're basically everywhere. And we've gotten some really cool streams and really cool people reaching out via all of those. So thank you again. With that said, I'd like to introduce my guest for this week, Rob Cosgrove. We add him onto the show. Rob, how are you doing today?
Great, Jeff. How you doing? Great to be here.
I'm awesome. Thank you. And again, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you spending your time talking to me and talking to all my listeners. So thanks, Rob.
Absolutely. I was looking forward to it since we chatted, and I can't wait to get started.
Very awesome. So I have a lot of great stories that I've read about you and things that you've shared and such. But for those of you, but for those that don't know you, Rob, can you give a brief background on yourself, who you are, what you are, anything else you want to share?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Queens, New York, and I am I've been a wrestling fan since WrestleMania 1. So I've been around a while. That just kind of dates me, carbon date me if you need to. Um, but funny thing was is one of the best things is I started about 24 years ago um, doing comedy in Northern Virginia. It was right before when my wife found out that she was pregnant with my daughter. I freaked out because I don't know anything about children. I didn't have any siblings. I don't know what being a parent is all about. So she said, "You know what? You're generally funny. Go and take a class." So I took a class, fell in love with it, and have been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's crazy. So awesome that you've been doing something you love for all this time. Question I would have for you is, so obviously going from New York down to Virginia is a bit of a, a venue change, a culture change. What pulled you out of New York, New York City, New York State, and sending you down south a little bit?
Well, like I said, I grew up in the city, so it was a big culture shock moving down here to Virginia because, we're in my old neighborhood, which I call a Noah's Ark neighborhood. You either traveled in pairs or you just didn't travel because it wasn't safe. Um, we, it was my parents' job that brought us down here. And I went from being able to leave my house at any time of the day or night, do anything I wanted, to a place that shut down at 7 p.m. 6 days a week, and Sundays everything was closed. So it was quite the culture shock.
I would
Um,
imagine.
yes, it was a lot different. Also, school was so much different. We never got snow days ever. I mean, we had, I think, 2 days off in the 14 years I lived there. And coming down here, they closed school for flurries. So it was amazing. The other big thing is when I went to school here, I didn't have to go through metal detectors, and my desk wasn't bolted to the ground. So that it
Sure.
was a big difference.
Definitely a
Um,
bit of a culture change. Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. The attitude didn't change, but the location did.
Gotcha. Did you find that, and again, I don't know you very well, but did you find like the New York sarcasm didn't go as far in Virginia as it might have up in the Northeast?
Oh, the other kids loved me. Teachers, not so much.
Right. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
I have a
sure.
bit of a problem with authority that is still with me to this day.
Noted.
I will not give that up.
Got it.
You have nothing to worry about, but
I appreciate that. I mean, we are miles apart, so we'll be fine at this point, but
yeah, you got nothing to worry about.
appreciate that. So you mentioned obviously that you went from New York, moved down to Virginia. You also mentioned earlier that you are married and you do have at least one child, maybe more. How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have a just about 22-year-old, and I have a 15-year-old
Very awesome.
boy and a girl, and completely polar opposites.
It's funny how that works. They come from the same place, it's the same recipe,
Yep.
but they tend to be very, very different people, which is amazing. So you just have to adapt and adjust to their needs, right? It's basically how it goes.
That's where the improvising comes in.
Ah, very good.
Yes, that has
Nice.
helped me quite a bit in my journey of being a parent.
It's definitely a great skill to have. I mean, I work, without saying too much about it, I work in corporate America. Same thing. You've got to adapt, adjust, improvise based on what the needs around you are. So great life skill to have.
Yeah, my
Um,
day job, same thing, corporate America,
yep,
you know, government stuff, all the same thing. I can't play that role there. So
of course.
I have to
Makes total
play it.
sense.
Yeah.
So you also said again that you're from New York. Your kids, I assume, were born in Virginia. It sounds like.
Yes.
Did you meet your wife up in New York or in Virginia, or do you want to talk a little bit about where you met her and how that
Oh, you're
happened?
gonna love this one.
Great.
Um, I actually met her the second day I was at college. I had taken some community classes, and then I decided college classes, and then I decided to transfer to a 4-year school. And as a transfer student, I was, you're supposed to go, since you're living on campus, you're supposed to go to all these campus rules seminars and all these things that you're supposed to do. And I blew like all of them off. I just didn't care. I was like 2 years older than the rest of them and of the new kids, and I just didn't want to bother. And my resident assistant who lived next door to me said, if you don't come to this one, I have to report you. And I was like, oh, fine. So he dragged me down to the auditorium or well, the theater, I guess. And I actually met my wife at the date rape seminar.
Wow, that's quite a story. Not everybody can say they met their future spouse at a seminar like that. That's it's interesting. Did you? bond over the content, or kind of like how did you guys click?
Well, actually, it was funny because she was helping out the people who were running the event, and so they were doing like a sketch and stuff like that, type of scenarios. And she has been working at the college radio station, and she was pitching the radio station to get people to come and work on it. And that's what I went to school for, because I really wanted to be in broadcasting. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So, we did the tour thing. She showed me around. Um, I had a car, so that was a big plus, because I was older. I was allowed to have a car on campus. So, yeah, so we hit it off like pretty much from there.
Nice. So you said that you did some communications, some radio back then, or that's what you were focusing on at the time?
Yeah, I actually did radio for a while. I ran the
Nice.
college radio station for 3 years. Won the university's Outstanding Student Leadership Award 3 years in a row.
Awesome.
And then I went and worked in commercial radio in the same market. I worked for 3 different stations, 4 technically. And so, yeah, I worked in professional radio as well. And then I realized I couldn't survive on that kind of money. So off I went to the corporate world.
Nice. What school was this that you went to?
Shenandoah University in Winchester, Virginia.
Got it. Got it. And so you said you ran and worked on the college radio station for 3 years there.
Yes. Yep.
Was that largely talk? Was that largely music? A combination of both, or what kind of work did you do on the radio?
It was a hodgepodge, actually. The new people got to run specific shows they were only allowed to do from certain music, where the management staff and the older the DJs that were there for a couple of years got to do specialty shows, so they got to bring their own music down if they wanted to. We had disclaimers and stuff for things after 8:00, so that if there were kids listening, which we doubted, but still we ran stuff. So my show was generally an 8:00 show, so I got to kick off the fun nights.
Nice. So I went to Rutgers University, graduated there in '99. But after I graduated, a buddy of mine worked at the college radio station there on Livingston campus, part of Rutgers. And he was like, "Hey, what do you want? You want to try it out?" I was like, "Sure." So I went with him, and I worked in the station for a little bit. Had a Saturday show, I don't know, for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. You probably experienced something similar in your college radio station, where we had certain songs we had to play all the time. Like there was a certain section of CDs that we had to play like 10 songs per hour. We had to say certain things. Back then, I was listening to way too much Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony, and I didn't I didn't recognize or realize, I guess, what my actual function there was versus just trying to be a rebel and just trying to be, I guess, a complete jerk. So let's just say by about mid-July or so, myself and the guy who ran the station agreed that I probably shouldn't be on that radio anymore. It was a fun time. Like I still have the old CDs of my old shows. It was a good time, but for me, it was a case of I wasn't necessarily there for the right intentions, I guess. I just thought I was, going to be funny, going to be a jerk, just making fun of people, myself. I mean, I was, 23, 24 at the time. Like, who knows what they want to be at that point. So
right, exactly.
It was a great experience. Definitely a good predecessor to me here. And, almost 25 years later, I've definitely learned a few things. But college radio was definitely something, right?
Oh, yeah. We had, I actually had, because they were all volunteers. No one got paid. So trying to manage 35 DJs that don't get paid and get them to listen to you is quite a feat in and of itself.
I'm sure.
The only thing I could threaten them with was taking away their airtime, and I actually fired a guy on the spot for lighting his shoe on fire while he was in the station. Which I don't have to tell you, smoke, flame, and does not go well with equipment.
Does not.
So.
Did the fire alarm go off? Was there any issues, or you just kind of caught him doing it and he said, "You're done"?
I walked in and I was like, really? I just had a feeling, and I walked in there and I was like, you're gone. I called security, had him removed. I was like, you're finished. I was like, you have got to be. And the guy, for less, no pun intended, he flamed out of school the next semester anyway. So he really didn't care to be there.
Did he have any kind of defense, or just kind of like, whatever you caught me, I'm out of here kind of a deal, or how'd that go?
He's like, I just wanted to see what would happen. I'm like, okay, you're lighting your sneaker, which was a Converse, on fire while it's still in your foot was still in it. His foot was still in the shoe. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't have you here. You're too much of a liability. Get out.
That's ridiculous. I
You
can't even
know,
imagine.
we didn't have, unlike you, we didn't have specific stuff. We had something what was called gold discs. I don't know if you remember what gold discs were, but they were radio approved music that
Okay.
the DJs before 8 o'clock could. We had 200 discs they could choose from, and each disc had like 20 songs on it, so they could choose their own music for their shows.
Nice.
Anything after, we brought our own stuff.
Got it. So, I mean, it sounds like you're lucky, you're fortunate you can bring your own stuff because, like, the stuff that they had us do, I don't know the deal behind it. If like they were basically contracted or if it was free stuff that they got from record labels they had to play or whatever. But like it was a lot of hot garbage. Like it was really really bad.
Yeah, no,
So much so that like what I would do was because I really just did not like the music that I had to play. Like they said, you got to play these songs. I would legitimately play 10 seconds of each song to kind of like check the box,
yeah,
which apparently wasn't in policy. So again,
yeah.
young
That
level Jeff had to deal with
that's
that.
a that's a record label thing.
Yeah,
So they were probably getting their music from the record labels for free,
yeah,
and that was they had to show that they were spinning it. And I'm sure somebody on the staff was saying, "Hey, this," reporting to them saying, "This song is moving up the charts. This song's," and no one cares.
sure. Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I had all 3 listeners who really cared at that point
right,
anyway.
right. And nobody was listening to that stuff, and we would make up those moving up the charts crap just to keep them happy.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
we had the same thing.
yeah, absolutely. So with that said, you also shared a story with me earlier that I'd like to hear more about. So
Sure.
you mentioned that you once had an argument with a famous news anchor on an airline. Can you give us a little more to work with on that?
Yes, absolutely. And I won't say their name so that but you may be able to figure it out.
Okay.
So I was 11. No, I'm sorry. I was living here. So I was 14.
Okay.
And I was flying back to New York, back and forth because all my family was still there. It was just my mom and I down here, and and she worked for Eastern Airlines at the time. So again, dating myself, but I used to fly back and forth for free. So I would go up, like twice a month to see them for the weekend, and then fly back before school. Anyway, I got to know the gate agents. I got to know it was always the same crews that flew the planes, the flight attendants, everybody was always the same. So we got I got to know them because she worked with them. So, it was kind of like, okay, great. This is working out great. So there was no assigned seating on the aircraft. It was first come, first serve.
Sure.
But if you're flying as a pass rider, which is what I was, you had to wait till the end to get on the plane because if there was a paying customer ahead of you, you couldn't get on the plane.
Got it.
They kind of fit you in where they could. So this is a Friday night, standard Friday night, no different from any other night. I'm getting on the plane. They give me my boarding pass. I'm getting on the plane. I see the crew. I see the flight attendants. I say hi to everybody. And I go to my seat where they assigned me. And there's a mink coat in my seat. And I was like, well, that's odd. But there's nobody in the second seat. So I figured, okay, maybe they just put it down, got off the plane, and they're coming right back, whatever. So I moved the coat over to the seat. It was a nice white, complete fur coat, like from head to toe. This was not a small coat.
Sure.
So I put the coat in the seat. I get myself buckled in. I get my reading stuff out. This is a standard thing for me. Like I do this all the time. And then this person comes on the plane and says, "I'm sorry, you're in my seat." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I didn't recognize them at first. But then I was like, okay, so I got my boarding pass out and I was looking at it. No, one. I matched everything up like you're supposed to.
Of course.
And I said, no, this is the one they gave me. And I said, can I see your boarding pass? She goes, no, I get 2 seats.
No.
I was like, how many seats did you pay for? And she said, well, I paid for 1, but I get 2. I said, see, I'm doing the math here in my head. And I said, that's not really how it works. So she got the flight attendant. The flight attendant was like, can you just move for her? And I was like, no, if she was polite and said to me, hey, do you mind moving? I have work I need to work, because now I know who it is.
Sure.
And I'm like, it's to the point she threw a fit, like at the front of the plane. Like we couldn't taxi back because of her.
And you're 14 or 15 at this point. So
Yeah,
you're a kid. You're legitimately a kid.
I'm a
at this point
teenager.
still. Yeah.
Plus, I'm flying for free. I'm not supposed to make a scene.
Of course, of course.
So all I'm doing is minding my own business. And she comes on the plane and she's freaking out. And then she pulls the gate agent up who gave me the seat ticket. So now it's the gate agent, the flight attendant, her, and me sitting in the seat. Plus all the other passengers who are now getting annoyed that we're not moving.
Of course, of course.
So now I think everybody's against me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not moving. If she wants 2 seats, there's 2 in the middle. Let her go back there.
Right.
And the woman, so she's like, I'm not moving. So I said to the gate agent, I'm not going to move. She paid for 1 seat. This is her seat. This is my seat. You gave it to me. I'm not moving.
Right.
And so I told the woman, hey, pick up your stuff, go to the middle of the plane. There's 2 seats together. Bon voyage.
Right.
She grabbed her stuff in a huff and walked because she had to get to New York.
Sure.
And she was through her stuff. She made a big to-do about it. Gate agent walks off the plane. Flight attendant comes over and goes, thank you. They apparently deal with her quite a bit, and she's difficult. So I got all the adult cocktails I wanted at 14 or 15 for the rest of the trip for the night because no one cared.
I'd imagine the statute is up at this point, so you're probably safe, and they don't exist anymore.
Oh, no,
so
they don't even exist anymore.
Right. Who bought Eastern? Do you know, or who they merged with?
I think Continental bought them at one point,
and then United merged with Continental.
Those people aren't even in with the company anymore who flew the plane. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago,
right?
So they're not. But what an event! What an event!
Crazy.
So
and for the record, we're not going to name that person because that's not.
No. But if you remember 30 some odd years ago, you know, who the major female players were, you can probably try to narrow it down.
Right. White mink coat, female, 30 years ago, TV anchor.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I'm sure someone out there will get there. So if you have any guesses out there, DM me and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I can tell you off air who it was, or I could put it in our chat and tell you who it was. So
that's
in case,
no worries at all.
You know, that way.
I don't need him to get in trouble here. So I think we're good for now, but I appreciate it, Rob.
Yeah. But yeah, so you'll be able to see who it is, so that way if anybody reaches out you can say, hey, oh yeah. So
very cool. Well,
that
Rob,
was fun.
That's crazy, Rob. So thank you for sharing that. Between that and the fire at the radio station, this is just nuts. You've definitely seen and experienced a lot of things. One thing that I was actually really, really curious about was when we were messaging before you came on the show, you mentioned that you're a Second City alumni. So that's something that I guess you, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Rachel Dratch, and a bunch of others all have in common. Can you maybe tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I've been doing improv comedy for the last I'm going to my 24th year now. I've taught, I've taken classes all in different schools. I've taken classes at the Groundlings in LA. I've done stuff in DC, all sorts of stuff. I've been part of groups. I've done teaching, performing, producing shows for the last 20 something years. So I wanted to challenge myself and go and try to get into the Second City Training Center.
Which for the record, anybody who's listening out there, Second City is one of the most well-known, like unscripted comedy troupes, like in the country, maybe even in the world. Many of them have gone on to do Saturday Night Live, all sorts of other various sketch shows, sitcoms, improv, whatever else like that. So this is, like I mentioned before, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, like this is the top of the top. Like this is where people, you know, their whole lifetime they want to go to if they want to get into this kind of a work.
Yes. So it's like Stephen Colbert and people like that have all come through there. Many of the cast members, if not, I would say over 80% of the cast members come through Second City Training Center.
Right.
So I had to audition. I sent them my resume, my headshot. And I said to them, I said, this is what I love to do. I want to learn from the best because I think there's still something. I'm one of those people that if the day that you stop learning,
right,
is the day that you're done.
Totally with you on that. Same type of thing. Like for me, I've switched companies and jobs and roles, whatever, over the years. I can't tell you how many times, because for me, when I get bored in a role, I feel like I'm not developing anymore, I need to move on to something else. Otherwise, bad things will probably happen.
Yeah, and I think that's normal. I think that everybody gets that feeling,
Yeah.
that complacency.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to be challenged. And I knew that if I was able to get in there, I would be paired with people who are either on my level or maybe a little bit above my level, but would teach me more
Yes.
things than I've ever had, that was ever experienced in the past.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started, it was a 2-year journey. I started with taking regular conservatory classes. And then once you get past the third level of the conservatory, you have to audition to make it into the ensemble, which is the next year of your training.
Okay.
Um, I did. I auditioned. I got in.
Awesome.
I was given an ensemble that I've got to tell you is some of the most talented people I have ever been around.
Very cool.
Just always in the moment, always ready to go, always willing to give 100%, and always willing to help each other. We were together for a year every week, and we had our professor. She doesn't like being called that because it makes her feel old. Her name, I can drop her name. She's a famous comedian and TV person, Frances Collier,
Okay.
and she's a wonderful person. She's an amazing instructor. She brought out the light in every class, no matter how tired we were, no matter how ridiculous and insane our days were. She was always there to bring us up and make us better.
Awesome.
So she spent the next year teaching and molding our ensemble. And then we performed basically our show 5 times on the main stage at Second City, broadcast all over the world.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Really cool.
And we had such an amazing experience that she has come back and she is mentoring some of us.
Nice.
We've asked her to mentor us, and she has. She was the mentor for Tina Fey and Amy Poehler
Oh, wow.
for part of their time, and she is just a light at the end of the tunnel. This woman just
That's amazing.
exudes light, and when you're stressed and you're worried about being on stage, and she's giving you the pep talk before you go out there and perform, it's just lifts the whole weight right off of your shoulders. And I have to say that it was a little bit different than improv. Like, this was sketch comedy. Like, this was a whole new world for me when I went into this. And I wrote and produced and was part of several different sketches, and the show was amazing. I have them all. I was able to record them all, put them down. I have them on my hard drive. I'm never gonna, that's my remembrance of that experience. I have my certificate up on the wall, that I completed the conservatory, and I'm now eligible to go to SNL and audition. But I don't think they need somebody of my age on their show at this point. But if everything falls into place, it might happen at some point.
You never know. They're trying to hit all demographics. They want all sorts of lifestyles, body types, whatever.
Yep.
So there's a place for everybody in that show. So you never know, right? Maybe.
Right. And, it's a commitment to go back to living up there.
Of course.
And, that'll be too much to commute back and forth.
I'm
But
sure.
I will say that I would never change that experience. That is something that has changed me as a person.
Yep.
And I love it. I love the people that I worked with.
Nice. Was there anybody notable or that made it big after your ensemble group, or is everybody kind of doing their own thing at this point?
My ensemble group, everybody is kind of doing their own thing. Some are doing their own little videos. They're doing their own YouTube shows. Some of them are doing commercials. Some of them are doing other things. I have gone back to producing and writing. I'm doing a lot of sketch writing and producing of improv shows, stuff like that right now, until I figure out where I want to focus on.
Awesome. So with that said, I know you had mentioned to me earlier that you do run your own studio or your own improv comedy troupe. Can you tell us a little bit about the Unscripted Theater, which is in Northern Virginia, an improv comedy troupe?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because this was born basically out of Second City. I wanted to take what I've learned and from all the different classes, not just the sketch, and then teach it to um, my former students who were high school and middle school kids who all are now in college. They wanted to, I wanted to give them something more that I got from Second City. And it just kind of born of an idea that what I want to do is I want to have shows for people to laugh, because I just feel like at this point in time, life is just too scary. I think real world is just really scary at this point, and we all live it every day. And I really think that it's important that all of us laugh, because I believe that laughter heals. And I tell people at the beginning of our shows, I tell them, I said, look, if you laugh one time in the hour and a half that you're here, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better than you do before you came in. So that's the focus of this group.
Very cool. Are there any comedy actors or comedy shows that you've seen over the years, or movies or whatever, that have influenced you in terms of like what, like, obviously there's multiple types of styles of comedy. Like,
Sure.
what would you say is kind of like your genre, your target?
I think it started with Whose Line. I think
Okay.
the original British Whose Line is in Anyway. Um, British comedy can be very, very niche, I guess, is the way to pronounce it. You either get it or you don't. Monty Python, big, you either get it or you don't. I think you look at several different British comedies, troupes and stuff like that, and that's generally how that works. So Whose Line was a big influence for me in high school and college, and that's where I started my journey doing that kind of stuff, which is a lot of the types of games and stuff that we do now. We don't do exactly what they do, but we do other things like that. I got into long form. Currently, one of my biggest one of the biggest influences right now is actually a 4-person comedy troupe in London, or based in the UK, called Shoot from the Hip, and their shows are all on YouTube and they're free. I watch them. I'm also a big fan of Mischief Theater, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard of The Play That Goes Wrong. They have a show on YouTube called The Goes Wrong Show.
Nice.
I recommend it highly. It's a half hour where basically they have a script, but everything that could possibly go wrong during a show goes wrong, and they have to work through it.
Nice.
And I have to tell you, it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. And it really got the creative juices flowing for me.
Very cool. Very cool. Looking back at your resume, and you said you've been doing this for what, like 23 plus years. What would you say is your favorite performance you've done, or your favorite set of shows that you've done over the years?
I will tell you about, well, obviously the stuff I'm doing right now, I'm really proud of.
Awesome.
I will say that when I was teaching at the high school, I wrote and produced 3 murder mysteries that were all improvised by my kids, which was
Nice.
quite an endeavor. I'm pretty proud of those. But I will tell you about the one scene that I was part of in the DC improv scene that was one of the best. We were doing a game called Genre, and it's basically the host will get a list of different types of genres of movies, theater, and TV styles, and we'll do a scene. And it was right before it was the Thanksgiving Eve, and we had a big show, sold out show at the DC Improv, and it was about 300 people in the audience and about 10 of us on stage. And I got to work with 2 guys who one of them is doing commercials now. I see him on commercials and I'm like, oh my God, there's the guy, and then another guy who's in New York right now. But the 3 of us did a great show, and it turned to, this is a smaller stage, but it's raised really high and the ceiling's low. So we had to be really careful. But we started off with a regular scene where I was a butler just bringing in a turkey for Thanksgiving. And we did a regular scene for a minute, and the host changed it to wrestling.
Oh
So
wow.
I dropped the turkey, I took the tray, I hit one guy over the head with it. One guy climbed up on the stool and dropped an elbow on me on the stage. I thought the stage was going to break because of all of us jumping around. And we went on for like a minute. The audience is losing their mind. We're laughing during the scene. And then he stops it and makes it a QVC show.
Oh wow.
So I'm all like out of breath. The two of them are hosting the show. I'm like the Vanna White showing the object, and I'm like, this stool right here has the blood of all of these wrestlers and the DNA underneath.
Oh
The
wow.
certificate shows of all the wrestlers who have bled on this stool. And we had this huge thing. The audience went berserk, and it was such a great scene. And that's rewarding when you have a scene like that where everything clicks,
Yeah.
including the people together.
Right.
It is it's it's such an amazing feeling that it's almost like it doesn't matter what else you do the rest of the night
Right.
because nothing else really matters. You had that moment. And
Absolutely. That's what everyone will talk about afterwards. Like, I saw this amazing show, and here's the one thing that I remember the most. It was awesome. So that's great. That's
and
really,
you
really
have to
cool.
commit. All three of us committed to each one of the roles we played. And
Right.
it wouldn't have worked if one of us said, no, I don't feel like doing it that way.
That's
So
that's the
yeah,
rule with improv, right? Just go with it, right? The
right.
movie they've had, was it Adam Sandler had a movie years ago, just go with it.
Hmm.
It's just a general premise, I guess, which is awesome. That's
Yep.
great. Cool. So with that said, I want to give you some opportunities to again talk more about the unscripted theater. Give me one moment for those of you who are watching on video. I'll share the website that the troupe has, and Rob, if you want to talk about it, if anybody wants to go to future shows, learn more about you, stuff like that, now's your opportunity.
Yeah, so I coined the phrase many years ago. We put the "fu" in fun. It just seemed to catch on with the group. These are pictures from our last show, which was about a week ago. We were in the middle of the top picture there. We were in the middle of a D&D adventure that a host was. We were spending a half an hour on one scene, and we were actually rolling a die to see what happened to us. And we were a live action D&D LARP in the middle of a show, which we've never done before. It was brand new. And what it is several of the students, several of the players up there were my former students.
Nice.
And so it's great when they're back from college. We get together, we get to play. They want to practice. So I'm happy to welcome them onto the stage. My daughter's in the scene. She is one of the players. I'm in the back. I'm some kind of obnoxious little gnome, a gnome barbarian of some sort, and all I want to do is drink. And I lost my arm. It was just this incredibly insane thing. But the way it works is the way unscripted theater is we don't have one host for the night. I want everyone to host. I think it gives a lot of variety, so one person's not controlling where the show goes. Everything is delivered from the audience. Every single character we have, every single emotion we get, every single scene we do, everything comes from the audience.
Nice.
We had 5-year-olds throwing out ideas at the last show that we took. So it's so great to have such an array of ages, so that way we can really filter in. Like, they were throwing out characters I've never heard of before. And I was like, you know who that is? I don't know who that is. I don't know if I can do this because I don't know who that is. They said, oh, just act like a dumb pirate. Okay, I can do that. So I rely on the younger members to do that. But the unscripted theater at this point is 3 main players, including myself. And then I rotate my old college students in so that they can be guest stars for different shows. So that way they get to perform as well. So that's the focus point.
Very cool. So those of you that are not watching, this is what's the web address? Unscriptedtheater.com, or is it theunscriptedtheater.com?
Theunscriptedtheater.com.
Okay.
And yeah, we have some there's it's still a work in progress, the website. Again, it's only been like 2 months that we put this one together. There are other pictures on the if you click to that, so you can see some more of us LARPing there. As my daughter is off to the side as the dungeon master in the maroon shirt. She is trying to hold the chaos together. So we're experimenting with telling stories, improvised plays and stuff. The games are great. The games are fun. People love the games, but we also want to tell them a story. We want to give them more than just the games. We want to show them how good of actors we really are, because we are actors.
Yep.
We have an Instagram. We do have a link tree that has a couple of other things on there. So they had us up on the marquee screens, which was really, really nice. And like I said, we are, just starting this one out. So things are progressing in the right direction. We
Awesome.
have, I'm meeting with the place where we had this show this weekend, hoping to book our next one in September. And we do stream from time to time. We do stream our shows as well. So
where can people find your stream? It would be via the website, or how can they find
yes,
that?
it'll be on the website. We have a Facebook page as well. So the information will be on that as well.
Very awesome.
And it's that logo that's up there. So if you see that logo, that's our page on Facebook. And most of the information will be there because that's the one I control.
Got it.
And I have a tech team who's younger who handles all the other social media because honestly, I just don't get it. You got to be on this. You got to be on that. I don't even know what that is.
Understood. So for those of you out there who didn't see that, the Instagram is at Unscripted Theater. And that's theater with an R-E at the end, not an E-R. That's the British spelling, correct?
Yes.
So make sure you don't go to the wrong Unscripted Theater. This is the one you want to go to find Rob and his people.
Yes, and my goofy cohorts, yes.
Awesome. So Rob, this has been fantastic. Again, I appreciate you spending time with us, sharing the stories. A lot of great stuff here. A lot of really awesome experiences you've had. Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to plug before we call it a day?
Well, like I said, the everything that we have and will be doing will be on the Facebook, Instagram, and the website. But I just something that I tell people. I usually say it at the end of the show. A big influence on me when I was growing up was Robin Williams, and it was a tragedy when he died, but he brought so much light to a lot of people, even though he struggled. And what I tell people, and I told this to my high school seniors when they graduated, I said, he once said, in this life, you're only given a tiny spark of madness. He said, don't ever lose that madness.
Yep.
And that's what I tell them. And that's what I do every day. I keep that madness alive by doing this. I have a boring day job. It pays the bills. This does not pay the bills. This is my therapy. This is what gets me through life.
Of course,
is performing. And I think everybody finds what they need to do in order to get through things. And I think laughing is one of the most important things you can do. I don't care if it's a sad day and you put a funny movie on, or you listen to a stand-up comedian, or you put on your favorite podcast, which would be Jeff's podcast, by the way. So you should do that.
Well, thank you for that.
Absolutely. And, just laugh, have a good time, and forget about the other stuff, because the other stuff's always going to be there. But you got to take time for yourself.
Definitely, Rob. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's a lot of where this podcast came from, was I was looking for an additional creative outlet. And this was it. Help me figure out how to put things together, publish it, and just kind of find my voice, right? Like, get outside my comfort zone, talk to people, connect, network. Without this podcast, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. So for me, this is a joy in itself. So thank you, Rob. I greatly appreciate the time.
I had a wonderful time. I love it, and I can't wait to hear more of your podcasts. And I'll be listening and subscribing and clicking the little notification bells and all that stuff. So make sure you people all do that to make sure. And then, of course, we share our love of Major Pod and other stuff like that. So I'll definitely be around. So anytime, I'm happy to check in.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Rob. So with that said, all of you guys for listening, thanks again for listening. This is obviously a passion project for me. I love it. This is so much fun. As of now, I make no money off of it. If you do want to sponsor at some point, you could email us at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. I have no idea what that looks like or how that would legitimately happen. I can wear your hat. I can put a poster in the background. I can call this, insert name here, Everybody Has a Story Pod with Jeff Seltzer. I don't know. Whatever it is, we can figure it out. As you guys have found us here, once again, we're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeart, Amazon, everywhere you can find podcasts. Once again, reach out to us on Everybody Has a Story Pod. You could DM us if you have any questions, if you want to be a future guest. For all things Jeff Seltzer, go to jeffseltzer.com. With that said, have an amazing week, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.